All right, darlings, welcome to Practice Live. This is a monthly broadcast where we get into the stories of experience of what it means to really be here. And that looks different for every single person. For me, so much of that required making a painting every day for 8 years. And for everyone else, it's a little different, which is why this conversation has been story catching for 3 years. And it's such an honor. It's such an honor to talk with folks from all walks, from different places, from different senses of practice. Today's guest is Portia Mayari, who is an erotic, what would you say? What did you say you are? Say it again.
I'm an erotic leadership coach.
Yes, you are. Oh my God. The leadership piece is something I was missing, but we're not missing it anymore. Erotic leadership coach. I met Portia a little under a year ago in a mastermind that we were both in, and was immediately struck by this person's wisdom. And I used this word in a call once, penetrating presence. Like you have this really beautiful way that somehow encases, like wraps with warmth, but also like gets to the heart of the matter. And I really appreciate that. I really appreciate my own experience of you. And I'm so grateful that you're here so you can share some of that shape of how you are and the shape of this last year of your life. And dropping into a phrase that we made up for this conversation called the erotics of crisis.
Because, the erotics of crisis.
Right? Because crisis, like, if we're approaching it through being completely derailed, it will be completely derailing. But when we can be in parts of these conversations of crisis through a lens of erotics, which I consider to be one of the highest forms of consciousness. Like, it's union. It is symbol. It's beyond collapsible. And what happens when you bring the erotics into an experience of crisis? So we have no idea where we're going yet, but we will. And I'd love to hand over the mic to you to share a little bit about what's important for us to know about you. Where do you come from? What do you want us to know about your worldview and what's important?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Also, thank you for just the remembrance of penetrating presence. I love that. It's funny when you said that, I felt chills all over my body, because I'm like, yeah, actually, I used to call it embodied presence, but I love the penetrating presence as far as like one of the things that I teach, because it is something that I teach with my clients and my students. I was listening to, I was feeling into the question of like, what is the most important thing I want people to know about me? And I think one of the things that came to mind for me, aside from what I do, is who I am and who I am being. And that is simply a woman who is navigating the world of today. That's all I am. That's who I am. I'm a mother of 2. My kids are 21 and 15. I'm an erotic leadership coach. It's been a title of mine that I've been running away from, I want to say, for the last 18 months, even though that was something that was birthed through me through a practice almost about 2 years ago. And I was fearful of it, as many of us do, and many of us feel when we kind of step into our power and we step into this like knowing of who we're meant to be in this world. And you're just kind of like, I don't know, that feels kind of big right now. And it was only through this year where that title, funny enough, that title came through during a Halloween party in discussion with somebody. And I was like, I'm playing around with 2 titles, actually. One of them feels like a mouthful that I've been going with for the last like 2.5 years, which is I'm a somatic practitioner and sensual embodiment coach, or I'm an erotic leadership coach. And so anyways, yeah, that title kind of birthed about a month ago, where I'm like, fuck it, I'm just arriving into this world as that. And so, yeah, that's been kind of alive in me lately. And I think essentially what I want people to know or understand about eroticism and the way that I look at it is that, to me, eroticism really is about the sense of aliveness that we carry in our bodies. And also it's the energy and the frequency in which we embody and also carry ourselves when it comes to leadership. when I think about leadership as well, it's not necessarily the things that you do or the titles that you hold, but it's how you lead yourself in life. And I feel like all of us, yes, there's, natural born leaders, people who just naturally are born to lead. And all of us also have the capability to step up into leadership if we decide to. And that calling is something that deeply comes from within. And I've seen that arise in many, many people in my lifetime. And so it's really beautiful when people can step into that. So yeah, eroticism isn't just sexuality. It isn't about fucking. It's about co-creation, and it's also about a sense of aliveness. And when we look at the word eros and where it comes from, which is from Greek, eros means love. And it is one of the highest frequencies that we can embody. It's that energy of love. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just making sounds and saying yes the entire time you were talking. Yes. A thing that you touched on that I'd love to hear more from you on is the activation of the big, because I feel like this leads into the conversation we're having today about the erotics of crisis. Like, as a precursor, can you share some of your words around the activation of expansion, the activation of stepping into a bigger field of identity, a bigger field of calling, a bigger field of expression? Like, what more would you say about that?
I think it's interesting because when we think of expansion, the way that we're conditioned and also now socialized, right? And the reason why I say socialized is because we're constantly on TikTok, we're constantly on Instagram, we're constantly on YouTube, we're constantly on social media platforms being socialized every single day to think, feel, and behave a certain way, right? So I use the word socialize in that manner. When we think of expansion, we often think of it as like, oh shit, we're gonna like blow up into this like thing, right? Like here we are, it's gonna be this like most exhilarating experience. And for me, expansion, particularly in this year, came with a rupture first and foremost. And it's funny when you think about ruptures, because ruptures, when you think of what happens to a body when there is a rupture, for example, such as a birth, it is actually an expansion. And with a rupture, there also is a lot of other confusing human expressions and experiences that happen with it, such as grief, loss, mourning, a downfall of something. For me, the biggest rupture that happened in my life, and it's funny that we're having this conversation today because, tomorrow happens to be my birthday. And last year around this time, I had what I was experiencing, this most incredible sexual and erotic in what we think of the erotic expansion. My partner and I had this ex-girlfriend, and we were doing this incredible like relationship expansion moment, and I was preparing to have an incredible orgy for my birthday. And then 2 days later, my dad started dying from cancer. And I was preparing myself and my sense of being for him to become an ancestor. And this year, earlier this year, when he passed away, I didn't anticipate, even though I knew, as somebody who's a somatic practitioner, as somebody who is a somatic integrative therapist, as somebody who has all the tools, all the wisdom, I didn't anticipate the human experience that I would have on what that would have done to my nervous system, which really just like shattered every aspect and every illusion of identity that I knew of myself. And it was one of the most difficult experiences that I had ever experienced in my life. I was going through an incredible dark night of the soul. I want to say that I'm still in it, but I'm right now sitting in the eye of the storm, which feels so much better than being on the edges of that storm where you're kind of like, oh shit, I'm being hit by a chair or a branch, or like I'm getting really tousled in this. And now I'm like kind of sitting in the eye of it. But my expansion coming into this like this felt experience of like, yes, I am an erotic leadership coach, came literally from the rupture of losing my dad in the earlier part of this year, trying to be an entrepreneur during that grief and loss, pushing hard in my business, opening up a physical location, taking a huge risk on myself, moving from an online business into a physical in-person business, spending all of my savings, pretty much a good portion of my savings trying to get this physical location going. And then coming to a realization of shit, as a founder, I'm running out of runway. I'm not generating enough revenue. I don't have enough clients to keep the doors open. And I've been an entrepreneur for the last 9 years of my life. I can't seem to get myself together. I can't coach myself through this for whatever reason. And I have to pivot and get a full-time job to support myself and my family, even though this is not what I want to do. And even though this is not the path I need to take, I also know it's necessary. And I'm also like, the last couple of months, I've had to come to the hard fact of, well, I'm filing for bankruptcy, which, like that in itself, especially as a woman of color, a daughter of immigrants, the narrative of having to do something which for, women of color and a daughter of immigrants particularly, there's so much pressure for us to have the American dream or the American life because that's what your parents were fighting for. And so while I didn't necessarily, I don't hold that same shame or guilt that a lot of daughters of immigrants and Asian daughters that I know carry around having to impress their parents and hold that up. There is still that internalized narrative of, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it in this moment. And it wasn't about capability. That's what I'm learning. It wasn't about that I'm not capable. It's about capacity. It's about nervous system capacity, which I also think is not a conversation that many of us have.
Can we just take a breath with that?
Absolutely.
It's not about capability. It's about capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not so much in the conversation. One of the biggest diseases in the current Western context is the question of worth. It's the question of belonging. It's the question of capability. And no, that's not actually the question, which is why most of us are looping and spinning and navel gazing and sick, small, tired, and controlled, because that's not the question. The question is, and it's also not about how like regulated you can be. Like, I'm sorry, but no. Because part of what we're talking about in this portion of the conversation is it is activating to expand your capacity, and it usually incurs sacrifice or rupture. You touched on two things that I would love to like get into some mechanics around the erotics of. Take it where you want to. There's no specific thing, but when you were talking about the season of pushing, right? You were like, your dad had just died, and you were like in this season of expanding your business simultaneously, and you were in a season of pushing. Can you talk a little bit about pushing and erotics? Like what does pushing through do to erotics?
I mean, when I think even what you just said, like pushing through is force, right? There's no forcing eroticism. You can't force it to happen. And, when I was pushing through during that season, I wasn't necessarily, I think on the outside, it was both. Yes, there was some pushing through for sure, but I could feel the creativity. I could feel also the shit, my dad just died. And also that's teaching me that life is impermanent, right? And fuck it. Why should I wait till a better timing for my dream to happen? I really wanted to like make that happen. And I also felt like at that time in my life, I felt like, well, my dad and I didn't have the closest relationship per se growing up, But one thing that you said, which is the one thing that like has been revealing constantly for me in so many different conversations and even in my therapy sessions, is that my dad was the only person in my birth family that made me feel like I was connected to a sense of belonging with that birth family. So of course, like when he passed away, that nervous system rupture was because I lost that attachment to that sense of belonging in that birth family. So yeah, when it comes to pushing, what does that do with the erotics? It forces the erotics into a place where it puts it in a corner and it can't really actually breathe at all.
Oh, I wish like everyone in the world could hear that, right? I feel like so many of us desire. But it ends up kind of becoming a want to because we're in contexts that really encourage us to push. And then what it really is ends up in a corner and not able to breathe. Right. So callings are inconvenient. Like callings are inconvenient.
Absolutely.
Callings, if they were easy, we would already be doing it. There's a tension there that is erotic, actually. Like you have to move through those agitations, through those tight spaces in order to get enough friction, in order to get enough tooth, in order to make enough change for it to substantiate. And then it will continue to move at the speed, scope, and scale that you have the capacity for, not the capability for, the capacity
for. Mm-hmm.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Another thing you touched on that I feel like is so like, this has been alive in a lot of the conversations in the back end of my practice, which is I can't coach myself through this. And I'm curious if you can touch a little bit on the erotics of actually really needing, because we don't want to need other people, particularly in this current context, but we actually need other people. And like, what is the right size? What is the, but without being cleaned up, like what's the right size without sterilizing ourselves, of actually needing other people, because we can't always coach ourselves. Like even we can know the answer. My husband actually just called me out on this week a couple of times. It's like, you're keeping and analyzing. And I was like, I am. Like what happens if I just feel? And I actually needed his feedback in order to get into a deeper felt sense of my own emotions, instead of trying to make him, force him, corner him into understanding what I was like talking about. I actually needed him to turn to me lovingly and say, stop that. And that's what I needed in that moment. But like when I've gone through big crisis, and I'm a minister, like I'm smart about the things and like the things I could be doing. I have all these practices. I have all these things I can do to make myself feel better, but I really can't. Like I can't coach myself in those moments. And I'm curious what you have more to say about that, because I feel like this year has been a series of surrenders with you.
Oh my God, it has been such a series of surrenders. What I will start with is I've had to loosen the grip on the identity that I created the identity that was created, that everyone built this perception around, that I then also internalized for myself, of being the woman with all the answers. The many times that like I would reach out to people or talk to people in the beginning of this and tell them just briefly about some of the experiences that I was going through and some of the hardships that I was going through, the number one thing I often heard was, if anybody can do it, if anybody can get through this, it's you. And I was like, I am fucking sick and tired of hearing that. And yes, I'm deeply aware that if there's anybody in this lifetime who can get through this shit, it is going to be me. And I don't want to hear that right now. Because that to me, like, especially in those moments where I did not have the capacity, especially in those moments where I was like, I am face down in the ground right now without an answer. And none of the answers feels like it's working. None of the practices, it feels like it's working. None of the ritual, I cannot ritualize myself through this right now. I just need to sit with it, and I need to be with it, and I need to allow myself to feel through it. So, I think one of the things that we often, especially around grief and loss, that we so often see, like we think grief and loss is just about like deadness and there isn't there anything there, nothing is alive, right? But when you think about it, when you really sit in your grief, when you allow yourself to feel the grief and the muckiness and the like excruciating and exhilarating experience of being formless, right? When being formless, like an unformed, unstoried version of yourself, there is so much beauty, intimacy, and aliveness in that. And essentially, when you think of eroticism, that's all it is. It's the components of beauty, intimacy, and aliveness. And we are all capable to feel that if we choose to feel that. And so for me, the eroticism in that was learning how to really sit with the grief of the loss of everything. And when I say everything, it was everything for me. I was sitting with the idea, I was sitting with like the mourning and the grieving of the family I thought I was going to have post divorce, meaning co-parenting with the father of my kids and also co-parenting with my current partner and having the beautiful blended family type of thing that I worked so hard to try to like hold on to for the last 5 years. And I tried so hard to. And, the death of my dad just kind of made me realize like some people aren't going to fucking change and you just got to let them go. And some people are not going to participate in your vision or your dream. And that was really difficult for me, especially because that co-parent of mine was somebody that I raised my kids with for nearly 16 years of my kid's life up until then, up until he exited the scene. And then also this whole entrepreneurship thing, right? Like I was an entrepreneur for 9 years, able to like produce, able to manifest, and like just the levels of manifestation and creation that I was able to have in the first 9 years of that, and to all of a sudden feel like everything is not generating from me. There's no generation within me at all. I don't have that sense of aliveness that we so much in this Western culture really pour so much emphasis on, that aliveness is about creation. And, we always like think about summer as like the best experience to have, right? Because everything is popping, everything is alive, everything is bustling. We forget that winters are also part of aliveness. We forget that destruction is also part of aliveness. These are all part of the cycles of God consciousness or erotic consciousness, as you beautifully said earlier. And we have to have each of those seasons in order for us to be able to appreciate when things are blossoming and when things are blooming and when things feel beautiful. I was just in a conversation with a friend about contrast yesterday. And when she said, we were talking about this night out that we had. We had a beautiful night out yesterday. And, there's some networking events where it's a complete beautiful experience. And some networking events where you're like, God, that was such a bust, right? And you have to have those experiences of contrast so that you can experience, so that you can be able to appreciate the experience of having the beauty. It's part of it. But again, we're so conditioned and socialized to just constantly be in a consumption mode, in a mode of this is all the beauty, this is all the things, and I want all that. I want all the things that I desire, rather than sitting with what does it look like if you don't have the things that you desire right now in this moment, while the world and the universe is still forming out your greatest desires in the background. So that's been what that season has been for me, and the eroticism around that.
Powerful, Portia, all of that. I love a thing that you're touching on. I've been thinking a lot about. There's actually a YouTube channel I follow, Freya. I forget the rest of her name. When I find it, I'll link it on the description below. But she gives these transmissions, and a transmission she put out like 6 months ago was like, you can't just keep birthing. Like you can't just keep creating. You actually have to let things die, and you have to bury things deep enough so that when they twitch, you're not even tempted to carry the dead with you. And as you're talking about rupture and, this rupture of identity and the way that your dad's death really brought a lot of truth to the surface. It really cleared a lot of like mud from, maybe it cleared the generation, like that generative, like constant production energy of like, I'm always just going to build and build and build. And kind of moved you into a season of like maybe burying your dead deep enough so that when they twitch, you don't have to drag them around. Like what if we're not this? And I so relate to this. What if you're not just the woman with the answers? And I'm saying this because you and I in human design are both 6'2s. And like literally since I was like a kid, like a child, people have been coming to me to be like, you must have the answer. And I'm like, what? Like you're talking to me about your drug addicted boyfriend? And I'm like, 10? Okay. No, I probably don't have the answer for you. But and like that part of me is true. I really do have access. But in order for me to really embody who and how I really am and to like be who and how I am now, because who I am now is not who I was even a year ago. So much has changed. So much is changing. Yeah. Like what if I'm not, and what if you're not just the woman with the answers? What if you're also a bunch of things that don't even have names? They don't even have names. They cannot even be collapsed into language.
Yeah. So it's funny because how the whole stepping into erotic leadership came to be. I was at this Halloween party, epic Halloween party, by the way. And I was dressed in this like, bodysuit that had the skull, and I painted my face half dead, half alive. And even in the bodysuit has like flowers similar to the flowers in my background here. And so there's like a mixture of like death and aliveness all over the place, right? And so I go up to these two guys at the party, and I'm like, what are you dressed as? Right. And this guy, I guess, was dressed as the hot takes guy from Instagram or TikTok. And I'm like, he goes, don't you have a hot take? I was like, I don't even know what that is. I'm sorry. Like I'm not into the trends. Anyways. And one of the other guys was like, what are you dressed as? And I'm like, guess, right? So he starts like guessing all these things. He starts naming all these things. And let me just say, Meg, I have not felt so seen by a stranger in a while, right? And his description of like what he was saying, what came out of my mouth next was, I am formless beauty, an unstoried version of myself. I am neither half alive and I'm half dead. I'm somewhere in between. I haven't quite fully left my old life yet and my old identities, and I haven't quite stepped into the new one yet. I'm literally in the state of morphogenesis, which was actually the theme of this Halloween party, which couldn't have been more perfect. And I was like, talk about literally being on that edge, on that line of like where the veils between the conscious and the unconscious thin, right? And I was like, I am formless beauty. And so in that moment, I was like, oh my God, that language, that word, that theme, that archetype, whatever we want to call it, is going to be carrying me through this next chapter of whatever this dark night of the soul is for me right now. And I kid you not, that party was a portal for me.
Yeah.
To really kind of just like, oh, yeah, I'm actually in the dark night of my soul, and I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm just going to sit in the eye of the storm as formless beauty, an unstoried version of myself. And I'm going to let it like move around me as I sit here instead of fighting against it. And I think so many of us fight against our dark night of the souls, especially when we are the people with all the answers, right?
Yep.
Because it's terrifying. It is terrifying to be the person who has no answers. It is terrifying to be seen as the person who the world at least perceives you as this like incredible, masterful, whatever identity that they have created in their mind of who you are. When you're like sitting there going, I'm just a human being, try to take one day at a time. Yeah. One day at a time. I'm just like you. I'm just maybe a few steps ahead, or have a couple of other life experiences that my soul decided it wanted to experience on this lifetime. But other than that, I'm just blood, breath, bones, flesh. I
Yep.
am just like you,
Yep.
navigating this crazy lifetime we call life, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we all have different capacities and gifts and consciousness projects. And like one of my consciousness projects, one of my abilities is to be able to translate a bit of what's happening while it's happening for the benefit of all involved, myself included. And you also have that. You have an ability to put words to things that are happening. And it's naturally a teaching stance. It's naturally a giving, serving stance. And it can be hard for people to see underneath how they're being served. And it can be hard for us to see who we are without serving. And that's a practice for me. There's this thing about this formless beauty piece that I feel so excited about because it feels like it holds oh my God, I just had a funny image. I wish it were a better image. It's like speculative. It's like holding, it's like it holds the walls open, so that the space doesn't have to like feel like it needs to contract before it's really ready to contract. Like it actually needs to be held open. Like the space of what dark night is, right? And I so hear you and agree with you that many of us try to quicken the dark night because it's terrifying to not have the answers. It's much more rewarded and glamorous to be in that mystic stage of development of illumination in which like, that and you embody that knowing and everyone is like warmed and illuminated by what you know. And then when you move into that maturation of dark night, of not knowing, which is formless itself, like it's not like, and you will be in dark night for 6 months and then you will emerge and you'll be integrated and enlightened. It's like, no, this might have always been a pattern that has been showing up like Saturn or the moon. And it will definitely be spiraling around and including you and continuing to expand. Like, what if we're not in the business of getting rid of dark night, but we're in more of a business of holding the space long enough for the transformation to happen, holding it open long enough to substantiate the changes and to continue to be of service while we're in it. Not that I particularly like Mother Teresa, even though that seems like a blasphemous thing to say because, by all appearances, she was, Mother Teresa. But like one of the things I read from her was that she acknowledged that she was in dark night and that she was still in it, like she didn't know and was still of service. She didn't know the same things that she knew when she entered her faith and still was of service. And, if you're not in that tone of understanding, sort of the mesoteric, like it can seem like she was faking it. And, her personally, she may have been, but like, it's not necessarily a faking it when you're holding that space open and it's it's always the and. It's like, I don't know. And I am here in this moment in my felt sense, in my aliveness, in the formless beauty, in the grief,
my unstoried self.
Yeah. Right? Like it's the and of like, I don't know. And here I am like remembering every moment. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you take the floor. We have like 20 minutes. So I would love to hear a little bit, one of the questions that I always ask for this podcast, which you've sort of woven in already, but I will explicitly ask is like, what does practice mean to you? Like, what does it mean to be in practice?
It's funny. I was thinking about this question today and I was like, everything to me is a practice. So living is a fucking practice. And there's always, it's whenever I coach or whenever I talk to people, I'm like, parenting is a practice, relationships is a practice, love is a practice, showing up as a human being in this lifetime is a practice. Everything is a practice. Everything is a practice. So to me, a practice is being. It's all it essentially is. It's existing. We are constantly in a practice of existing. That's essentially what it is to me. So to me, the plainest thing as a practice is living. It's just living. And if there's anything that I'm learning to practice these days, it's actually noticing. without having to create an answer, without having to create a story, without having to make meaning, but to simply just notice what is existing inside of me and around me. And essentially, if you think about it, that is also that penetrating presence that you talk about, right? It's being in the practice of that type of presence of like, can I just simply notice without judgment, without naming anything, without creating a narrative of what it feels like, and to just really allow myself to sense and feel? That has been one that I've been really, really trying to hone in on, like deeply, deeply. Um, and it's funny because I thought I was really good at that practice until grief showed up on my doorstep in the way that it did. And it became such a powerful teacher and clarifier of like, oh shit, can I practice noticing and seeing and experiencing the aliveness in grief and allowing those sensations to just be there, not necessarily to let it wash over me per se, to let it move through me. And we talk about this all the time when it comes to grief, or we talk about this all the time when it comes to mourning losses. But how many of us, myself included, want to rush through the grief because we want to get to the other side? And I mean, this Western society, you only get 5 days of unpaid bereavement as a standard in most companies. It's like, wow, no wonder why we don't know how to grieve as a society. No wonder why we don't know how to hold space for when other people are grieving, because the instinct or the taught conditioning that we have is, let's help them feel better immediately. And it's like, well, what if we let them feel that grief? What if we let them alchemize that grief in the body? It takes 90 seconds for our bodies to close out a stress cycle when we can actually fully go into the experience of that emotion. 90 seconds, not very long at all. So, what if you let your body and your entire being fully drop into the actual embodiment of that for 90 seconds and really let yourself feel it, right? And I know for myself, there was a lot of, let me hold myself through this. Let me get myself through this. And what I think I've learned over time is I need people. We all need people, not just me. We all need people to witness us in our most messiest moments, because we are not meant to hold things by ourselves. Even our joy, we're not meant to hold our joy by ourselves. We're not meant to hold our ecstatic experience of like excitement by ourselves. We're meant to share that with other people and to be witnessed. And that powerful exchange of having somebody witness you in both the experiences of your joy and your grief all simultaneously is one of the most healing experiences that we can give to ourselves in our lifetime, because there's nothing more than our bodies and our nervous systems want than to be witnessed in our humanity. And I think we don't give that gift to ourselves enough. So, I think one thing you mentioned was just like earlier about the whole what it means to be like not a woman without the answers and then to be held, or there's something along the lines of that. And this year I I chose to, especially during the summer, I chose to reach out to a couple of girlfriends of mine that I knew had the capacity, the skill set, and also the like wisdom, the embodied wisdom to hold me in my depths. And I also decided to find a ketamine assisted therapist to help me navigate through some of the depression and anxiety, because I am a masterful coach. I'm extremely exceptional in what I do in space holding. I have seen it all. Like as a trained sex, love, and relationship coach, you hear of the most horrendous experiences that women go through in their lifetime when it comes to their sexuality and when it comes to the abuse that they've had. So I've heard it and held it all, and it was also part of my training. And so with that, I can out coach myself when people hold space for me. I don't have the ability to always fully surrender into that. And for me, choosing this pathway of ketamine assisted therapy plus having the support system that I do now has probably been the most tremendous thing for me, to be able to like finally sit in my dark night of the soul and to be like, I'm surrendering to this experience, because now I can't, there's no longer the part of me that wants to outcoach myself through this. I mean, I feel like she's there, but she's also much more deeply integrated. She's not trying to execute her way through this. She's not trying to make it a living lesson while also going through the curriculum, which I think so many of us coaches and people in this healing space try to do. We don't like sit and embody the experience. We're like, ooh, here's an experience. How do I quickly turn it into a teaching moment? Because we're trying to make a living with what we do. And I think it's really important that we all start really sitting with the wisdom that life is offering, instead of trying to turn it into a 4-week course immediately when we're jumping into the experience and we haven't fully learned it yet, and like fully really learned it yet. There's something I say, which is knowledge lives in the mind and wisdom lives in the body, right? And it's for anybody who's like listening, when you experience somebody who has lived through it, when you experience somebody who like really knows, it's different. It's very different. As Meg said, it's that penetrating presence that you feel where you're like, wow, I'm wrapped in someone's warmth and you're cutting right straight through me in a way that I've never experienced before. And for me, like when I was going through the earlier parts of this chapter, and while other people were reflecting to me, like, man, you're going through this stuff and eventually it's going to be stuff that you can teach and this and yada, yada, that. While I was like in this like state of, yeah, I'm deeply aware of that, I also cannot receive any of that. I'm in this place now where I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, for anybody who's had a life where they were up, like super up there. And when I mean super up there, I had visibility in so many different spaces at some point in my mid-30s. And to be in this place now at 42, just about to turn 42 tomorrow, and feeling, and I know this is a perception and even the projection that I have onto myself of being invisible and not being as seen, is one of those feelings where not very many of us talk about, right? This whole concept of this idea of what comes up has to come down. I'm laughing. I can laugh now at it because I'm like, wow, I've definitely felt that, really felt that. And now I'm in this place of, I don't know, I'm in my unstoried version of self at the moment. I'm in my formless beauty. So I'm just going to say yes to as many things that turn me on right now. And it's not even from the turn on of eroticism, but turn on as like what's giving me life in this moment. And sometimes the invitation of what's giving you life in this moment can be those moments curled up on a ball on your couch crying because you need to feel that experience in this moment. So I think, the invitation and the challenge for each of us to practice is really, how can we show up to be a better human to ourselves? How can we show up to allow ourselves to really embody the humanity that we are experiencing in this present moment? How do we allow life to penetrate us with her presence in this moment, whatever that might be, without having to eject ourselves from the moment, right? And that has been a real deep practice for me. It's something I said to my therapist yesterday. I'm like, I'm really proud of myself because I've been really working hard on not ejecting myself from the moments of what I'm experiencing because it's uncomfortable or it doesn't look great. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't look pretty. It's not a teaching moment, because sometimes the practice is receiving all the moments too.
Oh man. That was a great mini sermon.
I was like, wow, I just feel like we just went to church there for a moment.
We did. We went to church.
We went to church.
Oh, yeah. Just reiterating from my own excitement of what you were just talking about, both at the beginning and just now, in this portion of the conversation, of so many of us in whatever the industry of like helping other people, the industries of helping other people, really we do kind of clean up and move into disclosure versus vulnerability around what we're going through, and that's not as medicinal. It's not as medicinal for ourselves and receiving the medicine of what's moving through, but it really then actually isn't really medicinal to anyone that we're quote unquote serving, because it's not embodied. It becomes a concept. And yeah, I was reminded this week, I just started a third round of Soul Friend, a training program that I have to help people become a presence of presence. And one of the people there was reminding me of this archetypal profession that isn't exclusive to itself, which I love, of the cunning person. And the word cunning in our context is like, clever or whatever. I forget exactly what the definition of cunning means in this moment, but in this context, it was like a cunning man or a cunning woman would be the seer. They would have medicine. They might work with tinctures, but they weren't witches. They weren't like pushed over that edge of profession or identity. They were bakers. They had other professions. They were woven into the community. And I personally really love that. It's why I really actually have a hard time saying like, I'm spiritual. Cause I'm like, I'm a person. Like I'm a person who paints. I'm a person who spends hours of my day and my week, like hearing the hearts and holding the hearts of other people. Yes. Is it all spiritual? Yes. But is it spiritual? No, like not necessarily. It's not about how cool or clever any of us are. It's just woven into my day. And there was some aspect of what you were just talking about where I'm like, yeah, it's just woven in, like the thing that this medicine presence you have, this penetrating presence that you have is just woven into your life. It's like, yep, you have a full-time job now because that's what your system needed in order to really land here in this season. Yeah. When I was watching you go through those moves, I was like, thank you. Thank you. Stepping into receiving and allowing versus pushing. And like, it's so hard. It's hard, particularly when we do often have passion or connection to that calling, and you're aware of the calling and you want to make something, you want to produce something, and there's pressure to do that. But there are seasons to be held so that the medicine can form, but you're still also a presence of medicine. It's just woven into your life. It's woven into your other facets of life. It's woven into parenting. It's woven into other relationships. It's woven into your work and how you're showing up at your job. Yeah. It's woven into this conversation. You're teaching us so much in this conversation. So, right. It's not like, I feel like a maturation point that begins to happen for those of us who hold others is like, at some point, something calls us to the table and says, really? And how? And like the how shifts. It can shift. It can really be about recognizing when to step in with the wisdom. It can be stepping out. I think one of the parts that's happening for me is I'm actually coming more into visibility after like kind of working in the back room for 20 years. I've been in practice for 20 years, but I've been in the back room. I haven't been that visible, but I did win an award this month.
Ooh, well bragged.
Award winning. Like I'm gaining visibility now because my soul's ready for that. Like my soul's kind of ready to actually come up and out. And when we're not moving in comparison and we're actually moving at the pace of soul, then you can't get it wrong. And it doesn't really matter what we're doing. That's really my stance on practice. It actually doesn't really exactly matter the details of what we're doing. It's how we're being there with what we're doing, because doing and speaking are part of being. But a lot of us emphasize the doing or the speaking without the being. And when more of us
So
can
many of
land in
us
that,
emphasize that.
which we're I love what you were like, we're conditioned and we're socialized to do that. Like, we're socialized to perform, we're socialized to present the thing that looks like something that somebody else would want to be a part of, rather than like actually sharing the thing as it is. The one thing I'll say about that is a current spiritual teacher that I really enjoy and admire is Mami Onami, and she puts out probably like it feels like 20 videos a day. She probably puts out like a handful of videos a day, like holding her babies, like she's just like in her kitchen or like going on walks. Like, she's showing like she's not showing the yoga retreat. She's not showing the journal and the candle. She's not wandering around like Mary Magdalene in the woods, like wafting, like it's real. It's like baby puke on her shirt, like bouncing, relaying, like in it, not like separate from it, not outside of it. And I really appreciate that increasingly more of us are actually yearning for the reality of the spiritual dimensions of life, instead of like pretending like we need to be ascetic monks, like on a mountain. I had a teacher once say, actually a Rinpoche came through the school that I was in and was like, it's cool to be a monk, but like, it's way harder to do what you're all doing. Like, it's way harder to like be in the world and to hold any awareness of the holiness. So keep doing that. You don't need to we don't need to clean it up. We don't need to be separate from society. We don't need to be in a room like Anchorus, like Julian of Norwich, with a little window in our purity. Like, we can actually hold the baby with the puke, and we can curl up on the couch and grieve the loss of our fathers. Yeah. All of that.
And the loss of ourselves. I think that's like the biggest thing. It's like, it's the loss of the version of selves that we once thought we knew ourselves to be. There's so much grief in that. So much grief in that. But I see it so many times with people that I work with as well. Like, they don't necessarily want to bypass it. They're just afraid to hold it because nobody's taught them how to hold it. Nobody's given them the permission and the space and the container for them to actually experience that they can hold it themselves.
Yes.
I mean, imagine if that was more spaces like that. Imagine if there were more spaces like that. Let me witness you in your grief and your messiness and all the other like human aspects of you. I think that's why I love being able to hold space for people who want to go on medicine journeys with me. Because I'm like, yeah, you want to puke, you want to cry, you want to scream, you want to yell, you want to jump out naked. In this like 6-hour experience that we have, I'm just here to hold a container and make sure that you're safe in it and to be witnessed in it. And it's just so powerful because you walk out there and you're like, oh, I can breathe. And you're like, because someone gave you the space for your nervous system to go through the contraction, the expansion, the blooming, the closing, all of that in a very short period of time. And now that you have that embodied experience of it, guess what, honey? Go and live your life knowing that this is something that you felt also too.
Yes.
And you can do it at any given point, like wherever you go. Right?
Yes. It is as simple, and this is the Heart of the Soul Friend program. It's as simple as being a heart with ears. It's as simple as being with somebody. And we don't need to have the answers. I think this is part of the thing that I'm truly unwinding into, is that it's not, people don't come to me for my answers for the most part, unless I'm like training them, unless I'm like mentoring them in an apprenticeship where, we're looking at the mechanics. But like, for the most part, it's actually just enough to hold space and to really witness somebody. And it's really a practice to do that. It sounds so simple. It's so deceptively simple, but there it is.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah.
I think so many people want to hold space, but they're creating a space and still giving the answers. And that's not holding space. Yeah. Holding space is really allowing that person that you're holding space for to come to their own wisdom. And it's
Yes.
being able to have that container where they can be whoever the fuck they want with you. And you are the clearest mirror possible. The
Yep.
clearest mirror possible. When you start projecting your own stories or narratives or even the hopes and dreams of what you believe that person can be, that's no longer holding space.
Yep. It's something else. It's not necessarily bad. It's just something
No,
else.
it's not bad. It's not right, wrong, or
Yeah.
it's just not holding space. And we want to hold people up to their potential. Absolutely, as coaches is what we're hired to do. And at the same time, I think what people need the most right now in this lifetime is just to be held.
Yep.
That's it.
Witness.
Because we don't
Presence.
we don't have very many spaces to do that at all.
That's why we do what we do, babe.
That's why we do what we do. Yeah.
We're coming to a close. Is there anything that, one of the questions I usually ask is like, is there a practice, which you did? You said, be with something for 90 seconds and really feel it.
Yeah. Just be human. Be human.
Be human. No big deal.
It's the hardest practice. It's the hardest practice. The hardest practice.
It is. I love your Scorpio heart. You're like, we're going to go for the simplest statement. That's the hardest thing. Be human.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is there anything that you would love to invite us to consider participating? Are you putting anything out? I know that you're in a different season right now, but
yeah, I'm in a different season. You know what? The only thing that I am taking a very select, small, intimate number of one-on-one coaching clients, and I'm actually really excited for this. I was thinking about this the other day because I was like, I don't have doors wide open where there's a lot of people, but guess what? When you're with me during this period of time, and I'm only taking 4 one-on-one clients this season, you have the juiciest, most penetrating presence available because my attention isn't spread thin in those spaces. So yeah, I'm inviting 3 more other women to work with me during this period of time.
Beautiful.
I work with, coaches, healers. I actually work with more CEOs, high level execs, people who are really kind of operating on that high level within their companies, but also founders and disruptors and thought leaders as well. So if you're really kind of wanting to understand what it means to come home to the wisdom of your body, like what it really means to come home to the wisdom of your body, and also activate your erotic energy as a frequency of leadership, I'm your girl. I'm your woman to hold you there.
Yeah, you really are.
Thank you.
Portia, it's such a pleasure to be with you. It's such a pleasure to hear your teachings and really just your stories and to hear you talk at length. Thank you so kindly for sharing with us this heart of this season of like, this life deal isn't just when it's up and looking cool. It's also when you're in the down and outs, and there's so much potency in medicine and possibility there. Grief can be life-giving. Grief can be life-giving.
Grief is life-giving.
Grief is life-giving. Yeah.
Grief is life-giving. I mean, think about it, right? All the tears that we shed, we're just watering the soil that we're composting with whatever we're letting down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amen. A couple of announcements. Next month, Practice Live might be me because my December guest is no longer available. And I actually have some stories of experience to share. And if it's somebody else, I will be announcing that. I'm also hosting a retreat in Great Falls called the Archetype Playhouse in January. And it is a space of lineage liberation. And we're going to go really deep into what it takes to playfully imagine something new beside each other, including those who are unseen, including the ancestors, and move into some crisis material because it's really on the basis of crisis. Mm-hmm. I will be sharing more things that will make more sense about what that is soon. And if you are curious about Portia's work, her link is linked in the description below, and so is mine. And I look forward to seeing you all next month. Thank you for being here.